Emily Carter almost turned the car around 3 times before she reached the restaurant. Her hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel as she glanced at the rearview mirror. In the back seat, her 5-year-old daughter Lily was humming softly, hugging a worn-out stuffed bunny with one ear missing. Lily's feet didn't quite reach the floor, and her dress, blue with tiny white flowers, had been carefully ironed that afternoon, even though Emily barely had the energy left after a 10-hour shift at the hospital. "This is crazy," Emily whispered to herself. A blind date was nerve-wracking enough. Bringing her child along? That felt like social suicide. But the babysitter had cancelled at the last minute. Emily had begged, called 3 neighbors, even considered cancelling the date entirely. Yet something inside her, maybe loneliness, maybe hope, pushed her forward. She parked, took a deep breath, and turned around. "Okay, sweetheart," she said gently. "Remember what I told you?" Lily nodded seriously. "I sit quiet. And if I get scared, I squeeze Bunny." Emily smiled, though her eyes stung. She wished life had been simpler. She wished Lily's father hadn't walked out when Lily was 2. She wished she didn't feel like she was always apologizing, to the world, to strangers, to herself, for being a single mom. Inside the restaurant, warm lights glowed against polished wood tables. Soft jazz played in the background. It was the kind of place couples went to celebrate anniversaries, not the kind where a little girl clutched a stuffed toy. Emily checked her phone. Mark Reynolds. Table by the window. Single dad. Software engineer. Widowed. Widowed. That word had stuck with her since her friend Jessica had told her about the date. Emily hadn't known what to say then, and she still didn't know now. She spotted him immediately. Mark was sitting upright, scanning the room nervously. He looked around 38, with tired eyes and neatly trimmed dark hair. He wore a blue button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up, like he wasn't sure whether to dress casual or formal and had chosen something in between. When his eyes met hers, he smiled. Emily felt a flicker of relief, until Lily stepped fully into view beside her. The smile froze. Just for a second. But Emily noticed. Mark stood up slowly. His gaze dropped to Lily, then back to Emily. Confusion crossed his face, followed by something else, something Emily couldn't quite name at first. Disappointment. Mark said, glancing around awkwardly. "Hi. Emily?" "Yes," she said quickly. "Hi, Mark. I'm so sorry, I know this is unexpected, but my sitter cancelled and I..." She rushed the words, her cheeks burning. She braced herself for the rejection she had experienced too many times before. The polite excuse. The forced smile. The "this isn't what I signed up for" look. Mark exhaled and rubbed the back of his neck. "Oh," he said. "I didn't realize you had a child." Emily swallowed hard. "I understand if you want to leave." "Really? I should have told you earlier, but everything happened so fast and..." Lily looked up at Mark, her big brown eyes curious. "Hi," she said softly. Mark stared at her. And then something changed. His shoulders dropped. His eyes softened. He crouched slightly to Lily's level. "Hey there," he said gently. "I'm Mark." "And who are you?" "Lily," she replied, squeezing Bunny tighter. "I like pancakes." Mark laughed, a real laugh, surprised and warm. "Well then, Lily, we already have something in common." Emily blinked. Mark stood up and pulled out a chair. "Why don't you both sit? We can figure this out together." Together. That single word loosened something tight inside Emily's chest. Dinner didn't go how Emily expected. Lily sat between them, happily coloring on the kids' menu the waiter brought without judgment. Mark didn't complain. He didn't look embarrassed. He didn't check his phone every 5 seconds like someone waiting for an excuse to escape. Instead, he listened. He listened when Emily talked about working nights at the hospital. He listened when she explained how Lily loved bedtime stories but always fell asleep before the ending. He listened without interrupting, without pity. And then, halfway through the meal, Mark told his story. "My wife, Sarah," he said quietly. "She died 3 years ago. Cancer. Fast. Too fast." Emily felt her chest ache. "I have a son," Mark continued. "Ethan. He's 7. Smart kid. Talks too much. Misses his mom every day." Emily looked at him with new eyes. "You left him with a sitter tonight?" she asked. Mark shook his head. "No. He's at my sister's. First time I've gone on a date since, well, ever." Emily smiled sadly. "Same." Lily suddenly looked up. "Do you miss her?" she asked Mark, innocent and direct. Emily froze. "Lily." "It's okay," Mark said softly. He looked at Lily. "Yeah. I miss her a lot." Lily nodded like she understood something far bigger than her years. "My daddy doesn't live with us anymore," she said. "Mommy gets sad sometimes." Emily felt tears sting her eyes. Mark's jaw tightened. He reached across the table, not to Emily, but to Lily, and gently slid a napkin closer to her when he saw her eyes shine with unshed tears. That was the moment everything changed. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Over the next weeks, Mark didn't disappear. He texted. He called. He suggested simple things: coffee at the park, ice cream after school, a trip to the zoo where Lily and Ethan could meet. Emily hesitated at first. She had learned to be cautious. But Mark never pushed. Never rushed. Never made her feel like she had to choose between being a mom and being a woman. When Lily met Ethan, they bonded over pancakes and dinosaurs. When Emily saw Mark patiently tie Ethan's shoes, she felt something warm bloom inside her chest. And when Mark watched Emily fall asleep on the couch after a long shift, Lily curled against her side, he felt something he hadn't felt since Sarah passed. Hope. But it wasn't easy. There were arguments. Fear. Late-night conversations about grief, guilt, and whether it was fair to love again. Mark struggled with the idea that loving Emily didn't mean forgetting Sarah. Emily struggled with believing she deserved happiness at all. One night, after a small disagreement, Emily cried in her car, convinced she was too complicated, too broken. Mark knocked on her window. "I don't need perfect," he said. "I need honest. I need real. And that's you." Months later, they sat at that same restaurant, this time with Lily and Ethan laughing between them. Emily looked at Mark and smiled. Bringing her little girl on that blind date had felt like a mistake. But the single dad's reaction, his kindness, his understanding, his heart, had changed everything.